Well, hello, good afternoon. This is turning out to be a recording for our educational partner meeting. I'm going to go ahead and send this out to parents with everything you need to go along with it. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so again, every fall, winter, and spring, we hold educational partner sessions, which is really our parents or our staff and students to come learn all about how we're doing towards our LCAP goals and actions. So the purpose of this fall meeting is to review end of year data from last school year, to review goals and actions that we have identified in our LCAP, and to do a review of the comprehensive school safety plan. So LCAP, for those of you who have never heard of it, stands for Local Control Accountability Plan. The LCAP shows how schools are held accountable for using state and federal funds and supporting targeted youth. It encourages telling of a story. It tells about how we support our students and plan for improvements in our school. So I'm going to go ahead and go through briefly in this meeting today our goals that we set out in our LCAP as a school, along with the actions that are associated with those goals. And I'll also review kind of how we're doing based on end of year data from last year. So if we look at first and foremost end of year data from last year, these are what we call dashboard results from English language arts. The dashboard results are from the California dashboard and include state testing scores for our school. And so I went back a little bit to show some history. So in 2019, you can see we were 39.2 points below standard in language arts based on state testing. And then 2022, which was 2 years ago, we were up to 23.6 points below standard. So this is a complicated measurement that the state does. But what you can see is that we have grown from 2019 to 2022. Now, if we don't have dashboard results for last year yet, but we do have the state testing scores for English language arts, and you can see them here. Achievement level 1 is the lowest, and achievement level 4 is the highest. So 4 would be advanced, 3 here would be proficient, and you can see that we have 37.9 students scoring proficient or advanced in language arts across our school. That is a small decline from the year before. So you can see based on from 2019 until now, we would probably still show growth in general across the years, but from year to year, from 2022 to 2023, we do have a small decline in our year-over-year English language arts scores. And so digging down a little bit deeper into that, if we look at our elementary, this is not state testing. These are the STAR assessments that we give our students that lets us kind of dig a little bit deeper, specifically in elementary, because not all elementary students take state testing. Also, not all high school students take state testing. So our STAR scores are really important if we want to get a really good look. So you can see the lighter color here is beginning of year percentages of students who scored proficient in language arts. The brighter orange here is end of year. And this is, so again, this is all last year comparing beginning of the year to end of year. And you can see that our TK, our 4th and our 5th grade at the end of the year, there were still at least as many students scoring proficient in language arts. In 5th grade, there was actually more students scoring proficient. But you can see our 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, it went down a little bit. There could be a lot of reasons around this. One of which could be new enrollment coming in throughout the year. That's one thing to bear in mind with our school when we look at some of the ebbs and flows and proficiency is that our school is constantly enrolling new students. And for example, this year we have 40% of our students are new to us this year. And so that is something to keep in mind. And a lot of the students coming from brick and mortar schools are still coming with a deficit based on those COVID years when things were a little challenging. Okay, middle school reading proficiency. Again, you see 6th grade and 8th grade were at least as good as we were at the beginning of the year. 8th grade, you see an incredible growth in reading proficiency from beginning of year till end of year. 7th grade, we had a little dip. High school, you'll see we have a little dips in 9th, 10th, and 11th, and then 12th grade, quite a bit of growth. So you can kind of see there's some of our really young kids in elementary and a couple of our high school and our 7th grade is probably where we're seeing a little bit of a struggle with language arts. And again, there could be a lot of reasons around this, but something to know and to work on, which we are. Okay, if we move into math, I did the same thing. I pulled 2019 and 2022. The reason, by the way, there's a gap between 19 and 22 is because there was no data during the COVID years. The state did not provide us any data. So there is that gap. But you see again in math, we grew quite a bit from being 106.7 points below standard to 73.6 points below standard. So still below standard, but quite a bit of growth. And then if we fast forward to this last school year, which again, we do not have dashboard data yet from the state on that, but we do have our scores. 22% of our students across the entire school scored proficient on the state test in math. And that's pretty close to what we did the year before. It's just down 2%. Okay. And again, I looked at our STAR local data. That's anything that we measure in-house is called local data. So our STAR assessments, you can see that in kindergarten and 2nd grade and 4th and 5th grade, these bright blue show you that quite a bit of math growth happened with those grade levels from beginning of the year to end of year last year. And then where we saw a dip was just in 1st and 3rd grade. And 1st grade is just a very small dip. Middle school, 6th grade, consistent throughout the year. Same with 7th grade and 8th grade saw quite a large growth. And then high school, you see growth in all grades except 11th. And this is just a small difference in the percentage of students proficient at the beginning of the year versus the percentage of the students proficient at the end of the year in math. So you can see we're doing quite a bit better in math than in language arts when we look at proficiency. Okay, so now let's look at the goals. We have 4 goals that we submit to the state as part of our LCAP, which again is our plan for the school, how we're going to support our students, how we're going to spend funding, that sort of thing. So, and then inside each of these goals, we have actions that speak to how we're going to achieve that goal. So goal number 1 in our LCAP is to increase student achievement and proficiency across all metrics and for all subgroups of pupils, including unduplicated pupils, and those with disabilities. So our actions are training, so professional development with teachers, universal assessments, that's those STAR assessments I was just showing you, some administrative positions that are supporting teachers, so specifically We have curriculum specialists that have been put in place to kind of align curriculum with standards and that sort of thing. Also, we had an additional instructional coach added to coach, work one-on-one with our teachers and coaching, that sort of thing. ELD support, so our English language development, like I said, instructional coaches, summer school. We've added a CTE program, which is career technical exploration. Oh, there's a typo here. Instructional support, that's our intervention for students. So students who are struggling can get one-on-one or small group intervention. Our dual enrollment with college that high school students, it's with Norco College that our high school students are able to participate in and take advantage of. We keep our student-teacher ratio as low as possible. We do have caps on the classes that we try to adhere to, and then the A through G completion as part of our high school. So if we start looking at proficiency for those unduplicated groups, and again, looking at 2019 to 2022, if we focus in on English learners for a minute, we can see back in 2019, 40% of our English learners were making progress towards English language proficiency. And this is measured by another state test called the LPAC. In 2022, 55.6% were making progress towards English language proficiency. So you can see there's quite a growth in those years right now. Fast forward to the end of the year last year, and again, we don't have that data from the state yet, but we do have the raw scores. So we are able to show you that according to the state test, if we look at ELA for English learners, which is English language arts, 17.5% of our English learners met or exceeded proficiency in language arts, and 22.2% nearly met. So we are looking at almost 40% of our English language learners in our school either nearly met or exceeded the proficiency for language arts, which is really good. Math, you have 35, almost 36% meeting or exceeding or nearly meeting proficiency in math, and then almost 70% in science. So our goal would be to get these kiddos that are nearly met bumped up that little bit they need to be actually proficient in meeting that proficiency goal. So our English learners are doing quite well and growing really nicely. These are that local data, that STAR assessment that our students take at the beginning, middle, and end of year. What we see is that we grew 25% more ELs, English learners, from the previous year. And you can see these here, elementary. The blue is beginning of the year, the green is middle of the year, and the pink is end of year. So what you want to see is that this pink number is higher than this blue number. And this is elementary, middle school, high school. And so you do see that all the way down in the advanced column. So you see quite a few more students testing at advanced in language arts on the STAR. On watch means they're almost there, but we have to keep an eye on them, right? It's that nearly met group. And so what you want to see in all of these categories is this pink number going down, because those are the students that are struggling and we're moving them up. So we want them out of those categories and up. And for the most part, you're seeing these numbers go down in these categories. Okay, there are a few that go up, but in general, we're seeing our English learners grow throughout the year. Okay, if we look at special education, reading proficiency specifically, you're familiar with these charts again, and you'll see it looks a lot the same as our general education population, where TK and 4 and 5 doing pretty good. First, second, and third, we see a little of a drop here that we want to be sure we're paying attention to. Middle school, same thing, our drop is in 7th grade, and high school, what we're seeing is a 12th grade doing really well, and a little bit of a drop in the other grades. So this is almost exactly what we saw in the general education population. We are also seeing in our special education population. Here's math. And again, very similar to general education, with most, well, kindergarten, second, fourth, and fifth showing growth throughout the year, and first, third, first and third, showing a little bit of a dip. High school, everybody showing a growth except 11th grade with a little dip, and math, 8th grade and 6th grade. Well, actually, now that I look at it again, all three of them did really well in math in middle school. So, but it is almost exactly what we saw in the general education population. Okay, so to answer some of the struggles that we're seeing, specifically in reading, we do have intervention in place that is relatively new to our school, but it seems to be working really well. So here's some data from that. IQ Boost is intervention that can be one-on-one or small group. It can be reading or math, depending on the student's struggle. It's open to all grade levels. And when we look at the data from the end of the year last year in IQ Boost, students who met their growth target, and the growth target is 1 year of growth for the entire year. That's our goal for every student, is that in that school year, they will make a full year's worth of growth. So for reading, what we saw is that 45% of the students that attended intervention with IQ Boost for reading met that growth goal, and 40% of the students who went to IQ Boost intervention for math met that growth goal. So these are pretty striking numbers for students that are, just have been struggling quite a bit. We also have another reading intervention program. This is just specifically reading, and it's specifically for those younger grades where you saw that we were struggling. These are small group intervention sessions, and we are also getting some really good results out of this. So you can see this circle chart right here is the number of students that graduated out is this blue. So 47.3% of the students who entered the reading intervention program graduated out, which is incredible. That means that they came to grade level and were able to graduate out of the program. You can see these blue bars right here are the number of students whose test scores increased each quarter. So that's pretty impressive. So we're getting really impressive results, and you can see we served 146 students in kindergarten through 3rd grade through this program. So we're expecting this to help us with that reading struggle that we see in those lower grades. Okay, also looking at graduation rate, 2019 to 2022, you can see in 2019, our graduation rate was 60.5%, but we're up to 80.2 in 2022. And again, there's no dashboard yet for last year, but we are up to 84% in 2023 for last year. So it's continued growth in our graduation rate. So goal number 2, we create a safe and positive learning environment that fosters student attendance, retention, and graduation, as well as parent participation. So the way we would do that is supporting students who are receiving EL services, supporting engagement, which can take on many forms, but for the purposes of today's presentation, I'll show you attendance data for that, and social emotional learning, prevention, and intervention. So again, let's dig into some chronic absenteeism, which is attendance. Chronic absenteeism is any student missing 10% or more of the days they've been enrolled in our school. In 2019, you can see it was quite high. 24.6% of our students were chronically absent. That means 24.6% of our students had attendance rates that were 10% or higher. By 2022, we were down to 11.3% chronically absent. The end of last year, we were down to 13%. So stay a little tiny bit up from 2022, but still in the same ballpark. It is something we're paying attention to this year since we did see that little bump. So then there is also another chronic absenteeism measurement that comes from DataQuest, which is different than the state dashboard. So the state dashboard, when it measures chronic absenteeism, is only measuring kindergarten through 8th grade. But if we look at TK through 12th grade, our whole school in totality, the number does jump up to 24.9%. But you can see if we compare our chronic absenteeism to the other, to the Roland Unified, where we are chartered through, to Los Angeles, or statewide, we're right in there with the rest of the state and the county and the district through which we're chartered. So while that's a really high number, it's on par with everybody around us. And then some last local data that I have, 22-23, this was the end of last year. Our total attendance rate was 93.22. Our goal is always 95, so we are seeing that little bit of a dip, which is why we are focusing on this year. You can see we were just under 95 the school year before, so we're down just 1.6%. Okay, goal number 3. Provide all pupils access to standards-aligned courses and a well-rounded curriculum taught by appropriately assigned and credentialed teachers, utilizing 21st century technology and targeted programs and services. So these are our actions, but essentially you'll see everything here is making sure our curriculum is state standards aligned, which it is, making sure all of our teachers are credentialed and highly qualified, which they are. And then we have a teacher trainer too, actually, that work with our teachers, NKB and foster youth liaison that make sure we're supporting those populations. We have an induction mentor this year that helps teachers clear their credentials. That's for new teachers in their first few years of teaching. We've added a guidance counselor. I mentioned before, we've added some curriculum specialists to help teachers with aligning the curriculum to standards, among other things, planning out standards-based lessons throughout the year, that sort of thing. And we've added a scheduler that helps make sure all of our high school classes are assigned to students appropriately. And goal number 4 is to decrease that chronic absenteeism rate by June of 2024. The school will lower the chronic absenteeism rate to 14%. You can see as of last year, we were 13%. The year before, we were 11%. So we have met that goal. LCAPs are 3-year periods, and we have met that goal. And the way we did that is by adding IQ Connect, which is a department that supports disengaged students, attendance interventions, and a director of student engagement, which is me, that runs things like IQ Connect and the attendance interventions. Okay, the last thing we need to go through in this meeting, and then I'll wrap up, is the comprehensive school safety plan. So essentially, we have to submit this plan to the state. This is also posted on our website. I will send that link out with this recording. I will also show you where to find it. But essentially, this is our plan for ensuring that everybody in our school is in a safe environment. And these are the components of the plan: child abuse reporting, disaster procedure, school suspension and expulsion, procedures to notify teachers of dangerous pupils, sexual harassment policies, school-wide dress code, procedures for safe ingress. You can tell that some of these would apply mostly to brick and mortar. And as we kind of go through these, and I'm just going to touch briefly on each of these, and then you'll be able to look at the details if you wish to look at it yourself on the website. But you'll see that some of these don't even really apply to us. And then some of them very much do apply to us. Okay, so also student code of conduct, hate crime reporting, procedures to prepare for active shooters. Another one that wouldn't really apply to us since we don't have a physical location. Procedures to preventing acts of bullying and safety risk process. So let's take just a quick peek at each of these so that when you look at it yourself, you know what you're looking at. Child abuse reporting, basically anybody who works in a school is a mandated reporter. All of our teachers, staff, everybody employed in our school completes mandated reporter training at the beginning of every year and are trained on the process for how and where and when to report suspicion of child abuse. They have to have a reasonable suspicion. That all that means, it's very vague on purpose, and all it means is that they have seen or heard or become aware of something that gives them a reasonable suspicion that a child may be being abused or harmed in some way. And then they make a report. And again, there's an entire process that's listed in detail in the safety plan that you can take a look at. Disaster preparedness, again, there's no physical building, so we don't need to prepare for earthquakes or flooding or fire. But we do have virtual fire drills that are sometimes directly tied to natural disasters. So we have had in the past where there would be fires in the region where students live and the internet or the electricity goes out and they can't attend school in the normal way. And so we do have a fire drill plan, a virtual fire drill plan, where we give instructions on how students can still claim attendance and complete schoolwork in the event of an electrical outage or an internet outage or that sort of thing. School suspension and expulsion, again, given that we are in a virtual environment, there aren't any suspensions. We have never in the history of the school suspended a student. There are administrative withdrawals. They're not technically expulsions, but they are the closest thing we have, and those are based on compliancy. Students that are truant, for example, may face an administrative withdrawal, and there is a whole process for that detailed. And so, but for the traditional expulsion, we do not have, and suspensions, we don't have at all. Procedure to notify teachers of dangerous pupils. Essentially, we just have to follow the law on this. And the law says a school must inform any teacher, counselor, or administrator in a supervisory or disciplinary position when based on records maintained by the school or received from law enforcement that it has information that during the 3 previous school years, a pupil has engaged in or reasonably suspected to have engaged in criminal or disruptive conduct at school. Okay, so that's essentially what that is. We just have to make sure that we follow that. But again, there's more details in the actual safety plan. The next component, sexual harassment policy. This policy outlines safe and appropriate boundaries for stakeholder interactions with students and strictly prohibits inappropriate or questionable conduct towards students by any stakeholders, including employees. There is an entire policy in the safety plan on that talks about reporting and investigation. So you would pull out the safety plan to look at the details of that. School-wide dress code. This would really only apply to what's visible on camera or to what students wear to an in-person event. Essentially crude or vulgar commercial lettering or printing and pictures depicting drugs, alcohol, alcoholic beverages, racial, ethnic slurs, gang affiliation, hateful speech, or that are sexually suggestive are not acceptable. Again, there's more details in the safety plan itself, but this is kind of the gist of what our dress code would detail. Procedure for safe ingress only applies to brick and mortar schools. Student code of conduct, this very much applies to us, and it applies to any live session the students are in. It can also apply to in-person events. It's bound in detail in the parent handbook with, and it's called the Code of Classroom Etiquette. So if you look in the parent handbook, look at the Code of Classroom Etiquette, any kind of offensive communication would fall under a violation of the Code of Classroom Etiquette. You can look at there's very clear guidelines on what's considered a violation, but not an exhaustive list, and then a very clear response that happens when a student has violated the Code of Classroom Etiquette. But we do take this very seriously, and it's worth taking a look at in the parent handbook. Procedures to prepare for active shooters. It doesn't apply in a virtual environment. Procedures for preventing acts of bullying. This we do take very seriously because it applies to cyberbullying as well. Allegations and results of investigations are confidential, so that's something to be aware of. But any student, employee, or agent who believes he or she has been harassed by an employee, agent, or student of the school should promptly report the facts of the incident and the name of the individuals involved to an adult staff member with whom they feel comfortable, and that person shall report the incident to the academic administrator. There's, again, many more details in the safety plan itself, but I felt like these were the important parts to pull out, that anything should be reported to an adult they feel comfortable with. And that is any allegation is confidential, but also the investigation and the results of the investigation are also confidential. So something to be aware of. Okay, and then the last part to call attention to in our school safety plan is our safety risk process, which is also something that we actually do make use of several times a year. And basically, this is a referral that's completed by any teacher or staff member that is concerned that a student is at immediate risk of harming themselves or someone else. So all concerns are taken extremely seriously. So this can happen based on something a student says in a chat box or on the microphone. It can be based on a lot of things, but if a staff member becomes aware that a student may be an immediate risk of harming themselves or somebody else, we move to the safety risk process. And the process is as follows. The teacher will immediately call local authorities or 911 and make sure to know the physical location of the student. They complete the safety risk referral form. They contact the student's assigned regional school psychologist, and they include the principal in the referral email as well. And then we document all conversations that we have with the student, keeping any emails, any kind of written assignments that cause the concern. So basically that's the process for our safety risk plan. The student would then hear from any law enforcement that was contacted, as well as the school psychologist to follow up. Okay, so I just wanted to show you real quick where you're going to find the safety plan. If you go to our website, actually, this is what our website looks like when you go there. And you click on public notices, it will take you here. And if you scroll down, you'll see comprehensive school safety plan. And this is where you can view the details of what I just reviewed. The other thing you'll see there is the parent handbook. Right here, there's a Spanish version there, where you can find the Code of Classroom Etiquette, among many, many, many other things. But let me kind of show you where that is. Right here, Code of Classroom Etiquette on page 29. Okay, so I'll include those links with this recording. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. What is also going to come out is a survey, a that will ask for your feedback, especially since this is going out as a recording now. That'll be really important to submit any feedback you have about our school that we can use to continue planning LCAP. There will also be a question about any feedback you have for the safety plan. Anything you have questions or concerns about, you can put on that survey. And there will be another feedback meeting in the winter. So this is the fall one. There'll be another one in the winter and another one in the spring. As we get closer to actually updating our LCAP, one of those LCAP meetings will be a really important feedback session where we need parents to be here and give us feedbacks on programs they want to see in our school, and how they would like us to see, how they would like us to spend funding. So I'll make that really clear when that meeting comes up so that you're aware. Okay. All right. Again, if you made it this far, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.